So I brought today a little something out of my closet that I've had for years. I think I'm kind of a hoarder. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how you work, but I associate like memories with things. So like I sometimes have to like have the thing to actually recall the memories. And then when I see the thing, like 1,000 memories like flood my brain. But if you were to ask me, I would not recall anything. I have to see the thing in order to have memories. I don't know. I might be a weird one like that, but that's me. So what I brought to show you is my McDonald's uniform shirt. Guys, look at this. It's so retro, like from the 90s. Don't you love it? So I worked at McDonald's in high school and in college, and I actually was an assistant manager. Maybe some things you probably didn't know about me, but if you had a McDonald's experience and you want to talk about it, I can talk about so many experiences. So one of the things that I want to talk about is about McDonald's, because I know that you guys do gift cards. And that you guys pass out these McDonald's gift cards, which is not just providing a meal. I don't know how you guys look at it or how you guys have spoken about it, but by giving that gift card, you're actually providing them a bathroom. This is like pre-COVID, right? Obviously now we have got COVID issues, but before that, you were providing them a bathroom and a place to sit and a space to be, which usually folks who are homeless or folks who are kind of being shuffled from place to place don't normally have. And so I give thanks for that card, that small gift of compassion. Provides so much more than a meal. It provides them with a place of being where they're permitted to be and allowed to be because you gave them that gift of that meal. And I don't know if you guys, have talked about that or what your understanding of those of that gift card is, but that act of compassion is what I want to tap into today as we talk about these loaves and these fishes. It's more than just giving someone something to eat. There's something more to it that I want to expand upon. So I want you to think about this week how you've used those gift cards that you've passed out. I know that you've done McDonald's ones. Are there other ones too? Unmute yourself. Tell me more. Anybody?
So we also, Sharon and Steve, we also bought some Subway cards because we realized that Subways are pretty frequently found, and that some parts of downtown Baltimore, there's McDonald's isn't as convenient as it used to be. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I've also passed some of those cards out up here in Timonium, no question about it. You know, there's homeless everywhere.
And when Wendy and I were doing Meals on Wheels, when we were delivering Meals on Wheels, we had McDonald's, and one time I could only find Dunkin' Donuts cards. And again, I thought at least somebody could go and sit down and, and they have breakfast sandwiches, so.
Right. Now, has anyone had an experience of passing out a card that was particularly touching that they want to share? Not to put you on the spot, but
yeah. Wendy, do you remember anything? I don't really.
Okay. I think it was more though some of the food for thought bags that when we had an extra one or two, like at Christmas time, and I kind of gave those out to some of the people on the corner there, at Mount Royal. They were very appreciative of those. I mean, the gift cards, yes, but I guess because, you see a gift card, but when you see a big bag of food, that was kind of more of a, but either way.
Awesome. A real testimony about how God's compassion flows in and through each one of us and how we are bringers of that compassion and the kingdom here on earth. So keep that in your mind as we talk about a little bit more in depth the scripture text that Phil told for us. And Again, if you want to talk McDonald's, I'm all about it because I have so many stories, guys. So many stories. So this morning, my sermon, or the sermon, is from these verses in Matthew that are probably some of the most familiar words that you were ever told. I mean, this is like a classic flannel board story, if you guys grew up in the flannel board age, which, did you guys grow up in the flannel board? I mean, I had flannel boards in like the 80s and even into the 90s. They had flannel boards still at my small little church. So surely flannel boards have been around for a long, long time. But it's the miraculous feeding of 5,000 men, which means that women and children, if they're included, was probably more like 10,000 people that were being fed. Just to note, this is the only miracle story that is in all 4 Gospels. So I am like 100% sure that something out of the ordinary happened that day, that it was told and captured in all of the Gospels. So countless words have been written and spoken for centuries about what happened. There's lots of opinions or explanations of how this miracle occurred, ranging from literal belief to ideas that the crowds would never go a far distance from home without actually tucking something, some small amount of food in their pockets to bring with them. And however it happened, though, the point is that hungry people were fed. So today I want to focus not on the how, but the why. Why were they fed? I believe the answer to that is found in verse 14 of this gospel passage, where it says, when Jesus saw a great crowd, he had compassion on them. Compassion. The Greek word here, splaglitsamai, literally means to be moved in the inward parts. It's a gut thing, like gut wrenching, like gut twisting. Matthew uses this word 9 times in his gospel. Luke uses it 3 times, and 2 out of the 3 times that Luke uses it, he uses it in the prodigal son, with the father having compassion on his son. He also uses it in the Good Samaritan, where the Samaritan feels compassion for the one that he sees on the side of the street. This word is used in stories to express feeling and to identify with a person's suffering. It's not a sentimental feeling of pity, but a genuine like sharing of that pain. For me, the fact that Jesus has any compassion on this crowd at this point, I think is miraculous at all, because of what happens just a few verses earlier or previous in this chapter. So you see, the verses previous to today's reading give this horrendous account of the death of Jesus' cousin John. You know, John the Baptist, the one who baptized Jesus in the River Jordan. So John was a prophet, as we know, and he was put to death by Herod because of the scheming of his wife Herodias and her daughter Salome. It's actually a very horrific scene that occurs at Herod's birthday party when the head of John the Baptist is served up or presented on a platter. Things for Jesus, or hearing this news, couldn't get much worse for Jesus. So when the disciples of John come to Jesus and give him this disturbing report of the beheading, we see Jesus immediately asking his disciples to be taken away from the crowd, and that he boards a fishing boat and sails across the bay to a deserted place. I believe it's here that we get a glimpse of the human side of Jesus. He does this sudden retreat. He's showing a bit of sadness and grief that Jesus must have been experiencing, this personal anguish over the death of his cousin. I wonder if at the time that he felt it, he was in his own emotional and spiritual desert. He goes off alone to come to terms with his loss. He goes off alone wanting to find, I believe, maybe comfort and renewal. Could Jesus be looking for some spiritual repair or nourishment out in that desert place? I believe that he was. But his time for prayer and reflection is cut short because the crowd had a different agenda. They wanted Jesus present with them, and they saw where he'd gone, and so they followed him. And it probably didn't take too long for Jesus to realize that he was no longer alone. Predictably, Jesus responded to their needs rather than their own. We're told he had compassion on them and cured their sick. Although his own heart must have been aching for silence and solitude, he spent the remainder of that day greeting people with loving words and touching them with healing hands. So at the end of the day, he was still there in the midst of the crowd, a hungry crowd. And the disciples asked Jesus to send the people away to get food for themselves. But Jesus told the disciples to feed them. With only 5 small loaves and 2 fish, they must have thought that Jesus was joking. But Jesus looked at the loaves and the fish, and then he looked up to heaven. He blessed and broke the loaves, and he gave them to his disciples, and the disciples then gave them to the crowd. He said the blessing and broke the bread, and all were ate and filled. And at the end of the meal, the disciples gathered up the leftovers and found that there were 12 full baskets of food. Is this a one-off event? I highly doubt it. Whenever people have been moved by compassion to put the needs of others before their own, I believe that miracles occur. So I want to tell you a story about this in the pandemic of some stuff that we were doing at Second Pres. So at Second Presbyterian Church, where I lead mission and church partnership, at the beginning of the pandemic, we realized that one of our partner organizations, which provides meals for about 200 individuals each day, mostly those who are food insecure, whether or not they're homeless, it varies. We realized quickly that because of the pandemic, they were having to cut down staff. It didn't have enough staff, and then also that they didn't have enough food donations, that their food donations had drastically dropped. So we decided, Second Pres decided to partner with a few of our other churches in the neighborhood, so First English Lutheran and University Baptist, and the Episcopal Cathedral of the Incarnation, and to try to provide casseroles and sandwiches for folks during the pandemic. And so the first few weeks were spectacular. We had outpourings. We were getting hundreds of casseroles and thousands of sandwiches. And then as it went on, the response was still good, but it wasn't spectacular. And so there were weeks where we would look at the sign up, and the sign up would say 23 casseroles. And it was like Thursday, and we needed to collect at least 60 casseroles to feed folks for 5 days. So we would be doubtful that it would happen. And I just want to say that every single Friday, even when we only had 23 signed up, somehow we have always exceeded that number. I don't know how it happens or why it happens, but I truly believe that it is a miracle. This past week, we had 42 casseroles committed, and I had 72 casseroles delivered. Truly an act of blessing. I believe a miracle. I believe that miracles are not confined to New Testament times. I believe that they happen everywhere, whenever people exercise what I believe their God-given gift of compassion. When that gift is truly put into practice, people are miraculously fed and built up in countless ways and even unknown ways. We might never know the results. We only have to believe that our connection with God through Christ enables it happening. It's happening. And so I rejoice and give thanks that this miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, it still happens today. It happens with casseroles at Second Presbyterian Church. And I also believe that it happens with ACTC donations each and every week at Havenwood. Food for thought in new ways that is going to happen this fall. I believe that it is happening through the gift cards that you distribute out to individuals that you meet just for brief moments on street corners, because you choose to have your gut stirred and to feel compassion, just like Jesus felt compassion on that crowd. Thanks be to God. Amen.